with some news focused from Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. What a tabloid saying, what's the social media buzz with, we're going to let you know exactly all of that. But more importantly, we're going to ask the viewers to get down in the comment sections, really help us understand what is it that you would like for us to do, give you a balanced perspective on any story underneath the sun. We have focused and pinpointed a couple of stories that one does have to look at. Of course, you have the Yamuna floods right here on the top page. It says Red River Fort, and it's got a proper, picture of the Red Fort with a proper puddle swimming pool-like situation. The NDRF, the STRF, you could see those visuals. We'll show them out to you in just a bit. Of course, the Prime Minister is in France. It's Bastille Day in France. It's their national day, and at the same time, it's important to know that the Prime Minister is the chief guest at that particular event. We also have India slamming the European Union Parliament on its take on Manipur. Many are saying that the Parliament has sort of like dissolved what the actual problems are. On the other hand, you've got a Bharatiya Janata Party vice president for the state of Mizoram that has stepped down owing to attacks on church. It's a big day for India because countdown for Chandrayaan-3's launch is expected today. India is, potentially going to be the fourth nation ever after the USSR, the United States, and
France,
to carry out that soft landing on the moon. It is going to be certainly a big day. A small step, but a big step for mankind. You remember that particular quote, Varghese. We're going to touch on that as well. And of course, Assam banning, polygamy and emphasizing the fact that it just can't wait for the Uniform Civil Code. But first and foremost, the Red River Fort. Various newspapers, their headlines in the first page properly dedicated to the Yamuna flooding the national capital. It says, Yamuna rages, capital drowns in misery. 23,000 shifted. The ISBT, which is the bus station, was completely inundated amid worst floods in Delhi in 45 years. The last time that particular danger mark, that danger level of 207 meters was breached was in 1978. This time around, we're looking at 208.66 meters, which is unprecedented level when you talking about the river Yamuna. Take a look at these visuals, ladies and gentlemen. The authorities, the police, SDRF, NDRF, you name it, the authorities were present on the ground. Even some of the politicians and ministers stepped out to help people out. The civil lines was completely inundated. The outer ring road completely submerged, throwing traffic out of gear, and civil lines showcasing how, it's not just a problem of the poor, but also the rich. The Yamuna River has hurt everybody alike. Take a look at that. You've got proper boats in the national capital. Have you ever seen that? I mean, Varghese, hailing from Kerala, a coastal, state yourself, did you ever think that you'd see a day like this?
Kabir, the entire thing has been put out properly by none other than the Hindustan Times, which says Yamuna floods swaths of capital after 45 years. So this is probably the biggest flood in living memory for people in the capital region. So after 45 years is when you see large parts of the capital being completely flooded by the Yamuna. So this is how it describes it. It says surging waters of the Yamuna marooned vast swaths of the capital on Thursday, forcing thousands of people out of their homes, inundating landmarks and arterial roads in the city, and throwing traffic out of gear in what was first floods in the capital in 45 years. From bungalows in civil lines to the iconic archways of spanning the Salimgarh underpass, from the perennially choked Kashmir Gate bus station and intersection to Yamuna Bank metro station, and from the shanties of Yamuna Pushkar to within 100 meters of the Chief Minister's residence. Columns of water swish around on roads and inside the neighborhoods, forcing the authorities to deploy 47 boats and rafts to rescue the people.
This looks like, you set out on a boat journey from the coast of, one of those cities in Thailand, and, you're hitting off out on an adventure to various other islands. I mean, this looks like a group of islands. Is this the national capital? Would you believe it?
See,
I
this
mean, proper entire
this-
house is submerged.
You know, I always, Kabir, remember, I always used to ask you whether this doesn't seem to be the entire length and breadth of Yamuna river. It has to be more than this. And you were telling me, yes, it is true, because the river that is flowing right now is probably what you see at its normal course, but the actual floodplains are huge. So if you actually look for the banks of the river, whenever it is monsoon and you have a proper monsoon, this river is going to swell. That is what you told me. And I said, okay, fine, maybe probably I'll be able to see it. It did not happen last year, but this year I am convinced that Yamuna is a huge river. Many people had in fact said that it is becoming a dead river. It is no longer a dead river. This in fact shows the capability of this river to actually burst its banks and reclaim all its course areas, and the river is just finding its course. It's just reclaiming all that low-lying areas in which it has been flowing for years together, and this just exposes the fact that if there are going to be heavy rains in the upper reaches of this river will burst into life and it will reclaim everything on its way. And when the Yamuna in fact has broken its banks, this is what you land up with. You see islands of small towns, very difficult to move out of it and also to reach onto it. This is going to be the difficult situation that authorities will also have to face. We know that a lot of activity, especially construction activity, has been taking place on the flood banks, but the river is just claiming it back. So we are going to see this might happen in once in 45 years. Maybe in the next 45 years also we would be something even bigger than this. So this river, I've seen it in its complete mighty form now, and I think that we have to just keep monitoring the situation right now. And as you rightly pointed out, many parts, and now I was just going through these places, you know, Yamuna Bank, a metro station, Kashmir Gate. I mean, these are places where you have huge amount of traffic moving, and it is all in the central parts of the city as well. So it just shows that Delhi was completely unprepared for this.
It also upscale colonies, not just the shanties that you're talking about. These are colonies. Prime roads of the national capital. Near the Ambedkar Stadium, these visuals, cars completely submerged. Now, even as we're waiting for authorities to step out, take stock of situation, and give us a proper detail as to what kind of damage the authorities are assessing at this point in time. Civil lines, Bela Road, Ramkishore Road, Yamuna Bazar, the ISBT Kashmiri Gate, Red Fort, Shankaracharya Road, Majnu Ka Tila, the old railway bridge has been closed for traffic. Khada Colony, Batla House, Shiv Vihar, Khajuri Khas, Sonia Vihar, Kiradi, Kingsway Camp and GTB Nagar. These are some of the worst hit spots. But what caused the flooding? The Times of India has put out right on its front page. It says, number one, something that we're already talking about, water that was released from the Hatnikund barrage, the immediate reason, but the peak amount released in the last few days, less than amount discharged in the past years altogether. The shrinking of the floodplains that you were talking about as well, due to encroachment, construction, and of course, the biggest reason, dumping of waste that has become a major point. 25 bridges that were built within the 22-kilometer stretch in the city at average distance of 800 meters obstruct the flow of the mighty Yamuna. And then again, we are always
25 bridges.
25 bridges, and we're already talking about more bridges for better connectivity. So you see, if you weigh these out on the Libra scales, development vis-a-vis sustainability, where do you actually come and stand at has led to the visuals that you're seeing on the screens. Now, the deposition of silt raised the riverbed height, which is again something that Varghese has been talking about for days now. The silt, the sedimentation is a huge factor that has risen the height of the river. Urban stormwater drains are unable to discharge these waters. And it's not just a Delhi phenomenon, Varghese. We're stationed right now here in Noida. Nearly 2,000 people were displaced in Noida as well, because the Kalandi Kunj is that particular point. It's a border point between Noida and Delhi, and the river was in full spate in that area as well. Now, the Indian Express says that even though the Yamuna has hit this record high, ladies and gentlemen, it is set to recede. However, it's going to recede slowly. Now, a couple of things that people need to understand, that till Sunday, all schools and colleges
that
are
is very
shut.
important. Also, non-essential government offices are also shut.
are also shut. They've been advised to go into work from home mode. Until and unless you're an essential company, your work is paramount for the functioning of the city, you better resort to work from home. And why wouldn't you? I mean, take a look at this, Varghese. From the Red Fort to civil lines, people enjoying pakoras in their balconies, just like we saw over there. Those instances have really gone down. It doesn't happen, it's not happening this time around at least.
Well, those incidents have gone down, but at the same time, the biggest worry is that a lot of people are quite unprepared for what is this. Now, Kabir, this doesn't end over here. When the water starts to recede, you're going to have stagnant pools, and when you have stagnant pools, you have to be very careful because you're going to have a huge mosquito menace. So, I think this is the first phase trying to mitigate the kind of flood crisis that we are looking at. But the second phase of it, I think, Kabir, you should be looking at how we can control the mosquito menace, because this is going to lead to a lot of stagnant pools, a lot of places. You have to be quite aware, about it, because mosquitoes can in fact start with malaria or dengue. These are the things that could happen just weeks or 2 weeks after this flooding that has happened. So we have to get rid of the stagnant pools of water, and also there should be a much more on a war footing effort to control the mosquito menace, because we are going to see the rise in the mosquito borne diseases once the flood waters start receding. So that is a big thing that people have to be careful about.
Right, the Delhi Traffic Police has issued advisories as the water level in Yamuna continues to be a problem when transportation is being looked at. Low-lying areas have been submerged, and a lot of key roads go through these low-lying areas as well. Waterlogging caused massive traffic jams yesterday as well, Varghese. Take a look at what's happening on your screens. Now, in an advisory, the Delhi Traffic Police urged residents to avoid the following 3 roads: the Mahatma Gandhi Marg between IP flyover and Chandgi Ram Akhada, Mahatma Gandhi Marg between Kali Ghat Mandir and the Delhi Secretariat, and the outer ring road between Wazirabad Bridge and the Chandgi Ram Akhada. These are also places that one must not travel on today as well. Actually, as a matter of fact, all residents of Delhi that are joining this show, get down in the comment sections, tell us what you saw yesterday, what's the road condition like outside right now. If there's any opinion that you'd like to give to all the commuters today, there are a lot of people that are involved in essential activities and will in fact have to head out. Some really disturbing images, Varghese, I saw yesterday were those of people that were helpless, people that did not have, proper roof above their head, that had to make do with makeshift tents with their cattle, people sleeping on cots and charpais, and right below that on a mattress you'd have the children sleeping below the parents. That's how small a space we're talking about. And it was very heartwarming to see that all these tents and makeshift shanties, the people over there, they took care of the dogs, the cattle, the livestock in the area as well. Sharing that
that is a very good act, because we all talk about how human beings ought to be evacuated, and of course they get that preference first. But then there are bigger issues as well. What are these bigger issues that we are to in fact look at? There are a lot of stray cattle. There are a lot of what I would call stray animals who are there. They don't get to you don't get to get them out into some kind of safety, because they seem to be neglected. Some of them in fact also die because of these flood waters. So a lot of attention, and there are small organizations that are doing that kind of an effort to rescue animals that are stranded in these flood prone areas in Delhi, and they have been working round the clock, that whether it is to move the cattle or the stray dogs that are stuck in the places, or stray cats also in certain cases. They've been able to move them to safety to a large extent, but it is going to be a difficult situation, because you have to fight against the raging waters, and it is going to be this thing. And I was talking about the flood plains, right? I think I just missed out the small headline that was there in the Hindustan Times. It says, "River recovers its original floodplain." Much of what has been submerged by the Yamuna today is essentially built on what was meant to be the river's breathing space, called a floodplain. This space is meant to function as the national capital's personal water recharge kit, collecting surplus water to replenish the city's aquifers.
You know what? Engineers are saying that brace for more, as officials at the Hathnikund barrage said that Friday could see more flood waters seeping into Delhi. It takes 72 hours for water to reach from Hathnikund to the national capital region, and the maximum amount of water, 3.5 lakh cusecs, was released on Tuesday. Technically,
4 days.
The maximum impact could be seen in Delhi on Friday. So today, again, you could see the maximum impact of the water that was
And
released.
plus, Delhi is expecting
the
rains.
Hathnikund barrage. And I'll tell you, if this is not the peak, look at some of these pictures, ladies and gentlemen. The Times of India has put out a collage. Right on the top page, it says Yamuna rages, capital drowns in misery, and you've got the Red Fort that you can see over here. On the right side, you have a boat that's doing the rounds in the national capital. Children, some having fun, some having to take all their articles and commodities with them, really displaced nearly 23,000 people that have been moved. And over here to this side that you can see, that little boy that's helping the dog, you know, sort of like a voice for the voiceless. And I mean, we'll have to wait and find out if that 100-meter distance from Arvind Kejriwal, the Chief Minister's house, will the water cover that distance today or not, Varghese? That's what we'll have to wait out for. We'll quickly move on, but before that, listen in to a reaction coming from the NDRF official.
देखिए, ये जो नया फ्लड सिचुएशन डेवलप हुआ है उसमें हमारी 12 टीमें एनडीआरएफ की तैनात हैं। इसके अलावा एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन और एजेंसीज भी साथ काम कर रहे हैं। हमारी रिजर्व टीमें भी मौजूद हैं। अगर ऐसी स्थिति होगी तो उनको भी तैनात किया जाएगा। इवैक्यूएशन का काम जारी है। कल रात से ये कार्रवाई की जा रही है। तकरीबन 2500 लोगों को इवैक्यूएट किया गया है अलग अलग इलाकों से, और अब भी ये कार्रवाई जारी है।
Well, now shifting our focus here, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, that picture that you see with the French President Emmanuel Macron. So much has happened, we'll have to spend a little bit of time here, and it's crucial and it's important, not just because our Prime Minister gets a good visit in France right after an official state visit to the United States. There's so much on the table, there's so much on the line as well. Yesterday, Prime Minister Modi was conferred with the highest civilian award that France bestows on anybody, and right after Fiji, Papua New Guinea, France is next in line. Of course, the Rafale, that's that particular medal that you can see, the Scorpion on the table. And even as we're talking about Rafale, the jet engine technology, we also have to look at how Prime Minister Modi has pushed forth the idea that India needs to be in the United Nations Security Council. How can you not have, how can UNSC speak for the world if India doesn't have a seat? This is what the Prime Minister has said. He met the diaspora, he met the Indian community in France. He was accorded a great welcome at the Orly airport. He got down, Prime Minister Elizabeth Bourne was also there, and there was a proper guard of honor. The Indian national anthem was played by the French band. It was really beautiful to look at. There was a proper red carpet welcome, but then the Prime Minister in the next couple of minutes, meets the Indian community that's there. People are crying, people are trying to touch the feet of Prime Minister Modi, just want to catch a glimpse of the Prime Minister. Then later on, he's bestowed with this particular award, the highest civilian award that the French country bestows on anybody, has been bestowed upon the Prime Minister, Varghese. We'll talk about UNSC, we'll talk about the the Rafale and the jet engine deals, but first and foremost, this award, what does this mean? What is the significance? Right after Fiji and Papua New Guinea, it's like Modi ji's got his own collection of the highest civilian awards. These are some of the first visuals, the French President Emmanuel Macron meeting with the Indian Prime Minister, and it's not a handshake, it's not a handshake.
It's the famous bear hug.
It's the bear hug. I'm so glad they didn't go for a chest bump over here.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that Macron and Modi have been seeing eye to eye on a lot of issues, especially when it comes to some of the strategic interests that they have, both the countries share. And even at world forums also, Prime Minister Modi as well as Macron have had a similar kind of a statement that is being put out as well. So it's just a part of that personal friendship that Prime Minister Modi tries to maintain with a lot of world leaders, and that is something that is a part of his form of way of putting out a diplomatic kind of an situation for a lot of understanding of how much deepening ties can be. So when a Prime Minister Modi, in fact, does not represent the country when he goes outside, he also builds his personal relationship with world leaders, which at certain parts he does use it through the advantage of the country as well. So over here, of course, when you see the Prime Minister being given the highest
it's called the Grand Cross of the Legion of Honor
So-
that has been bestowed on the Prime Minister.
So when the Prime Minister, in fact, this is not the first one. We have seen Middle Eastern countries as well as other nations from Asia, now many in Europe, all bestowing the highest order on the Prime Minister. Now, there's a reason for it. The reason is that India as a country is now on the map. There is a lot that India is looked up to. Many of these countries are also looking to be potential investors in India's growth story. We have been going to the world saying that we are going to be the next backroom of the world, whether it is manufacturing, whether it's defense equipment, whether it is already we are the backroom of the world's office. So with our software companies also in place. So this is the kind of an image that we are putting in, saying that you cannot miss the Indian growth story. You cannot miss the train of the Indian growth story. So most of the nations want, as you rightly were pointing out, a piece of India, basically. And our diplomacy has also become aggressive. When I'm saying aggressive, it means that our diplomacy has also come to a point where we are not apologetic and we are affirmative when we make statements. So that is something that is there. So, but
certainly, I mean, in the past, this particular Grand Cross of Legion of Honor has been received by only select prominent leaders, Varghese, and eminent personalities from across the world. These include the former South African President Nelson Mandela, King Charles, the Prince of Wales, former German Chancellor Angela Merkel, and former United Nations Secretary General Boutros Ghali, amongst others. And now you can add Prime Minister Narendra Modi's name to that list. And Prime Minister Modi himself has a great collection of the cross, the Legion of Cross, the High Cross. It's the highest, civilian award that has been conferred on anybody. Now, Prime Minister's collection includes Order of the Nile by Egypt in June 2023, Companion of the Order of Loguhu by Papua New Guinea in May 2023, Companion of the Order of Fiji in May 2023, the Ibakal Award by the Republic of Palau in May 2023, Order of the Druk Gyalpo by Bhutan in 2021, Legion of Merit by the US government, King Hamad Order of the Renaissance by Bahrain, Order of the Distinguished Rule of Nishan Izzuddin by the Maldives, Order of St. Andrew Award by Russia in 2019, Order of Zayed Award by the United Arab Emirates, Grand Collar of the State of Palestine in 2018, State Order of Ghazi Amir Amanullah Khan by Afghanistan in 2016, and the Order of Abdulaziz Al Saud by Saudi Arabia in 2016. So a massive list. These are those visuals, of the Indian diaspora and the Indian community in France that had trickled out, collected to meet the Prime Minister. Shifting our focus a little bit here towards the UNSC, where the Prime Minister says, how can the United Nations Security Council speak for the world if India doesn't have a seat? Now, of course, India and France, you told the viewers that are have seen each other eye to eye for the longest time, but now what about the other countries? Let's not forget, you've got Russia there, you've got China there,
a lot of these permanent members, Russia, China, United States, United States, France and Britain have all been giving that lip service, saying that we need to expand the Security Council, we need to have India on its plate. I mean, it's been going on for almost 20 years, and India, Germany, Brazil have been asking, and even Japan, to be included in that expanded council. The question over here is, how long can you keep doing this lip service? You cannot reflect World War II as a reality right now. The world has changed a lot from that time.
That's the Indian contingent over there in France, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to participate in the Bastille Day. Again, informing all the viewers, it is Bastille Day. 14th of July is marked as France's National Day, and the Prime Minister Narendra Modi is the chief guest, is the special guest at this particular event, and that's the contingent that has gone to Paris to take part in the Bastille Day celebrations.
well, very smart-looking soldiers, and of course their uniforms are going to attract the crowd during the Bastille Day celebrations as well. So it's a big honor because this is the second time I think in my memory that Indian contingent is participating in the Bastille Day celebrations with its army contingent, and it is a big honor to march in the National Day celebrations of France, and Bastille Day being the storming of the Bastille castle just ahead of the French Revolution. That is what it's being marked as, and probably considered to be the moment when modern France was born. So this is a big honor that is being given.
The Indian Armed Forces are going to march with their French counterparts, Varghese. This particular contingent includes 77 marching personnel from the army and 38 from the band. Now, the army contingent will be led by Captain Aman Jagtap, the navy contingent by Commander Vrat Bhagel. This is what we're picking up. Now, the Indian contingent has already held practice with their French counterparts. This is the tri-service contingent of the Indian Armed Forces that had left on the 6th of July for Paris and comprised of 269 members. Along with them, 3 Rafale fighter jets of the Air Force will also be taking part in the fly-past over Avenue Champs-Élysées with
the Rafale is
French
becoming
jets.
a sort of symbolism between both the countries. It's becoming a symbolism of
emblematic,
cooperation.
Emblematic of
emblematic of our diplomatic ties, the Rafale.
Certainly.
And also, there is a nod for the jet, and some deals are also to be worked out. We are looking at probably 26 Rafale jets more, the naval version that would be on our aircraft carriers, as well as 3 more Scorpion subs is to be taken further. I think those are the important deals that we are looking at. But then, Kabir, we should also see how our Prime Minister had interacted with a large diaspora.
Certainly, but just shifting our focus away from the army contingent. The army contingent is represented by one of the oldest regiments of the force. This here, ladies and gentlemen, is the Punjab regiment. Now, the troops of the Punjab regiment are the ones who have participated not just in both the world wars, but also in post-independence operations. So 77 marching personnel, that's not all, 38 from the band. And if that's not, enough, you also have 3 Rafale jets of the Indian Air Force that are going to be carrying out that fly-past over the Champs-Élysées with the French jets. But coming back to that Ministry of Defense nod to 26 naval Rafales and the 3 Scorpions. Give us a quick update on these 26 naval Rafales and 3 Scorpions also, Varghese.
Well, the idea is to bring commonality between the Air Force and with regard to the Navy and the kind of inventory they have in their air arms, so that we will be able to maintain and also ensure the serviceability of these aircrafts. And also, I think the Rafale has impressed the Indian Air Force as well, and probably the Navy with its capabilities, because it is considered to be a 4++ generation, almost coming into the 5th generation category, especially with its electronics. Meanwhile, the Scorpion is something that we are used to. We know how the Scorpion submarines are slowly now being inducted into the Indian Navy, and we have a huge submarine crunch. Our neighboring, China has almost 60+ submarines, and therefore we require to wrap up our underwater strengths. And so that is also something. And then we have a good TOT
This is
kind
what
of
is
a
so
technology.
pertinent to look at right after our Tejas deal and that
it is
deal
because
with General Electric.
we are looking at
jet
jet engine, and just look at it. We are also looking at France to ensure that we have good technology transfer on jet engine as well. So we don't put our eggs all in one basket.
We're going to the prime manufacturers of the latest jet engine technology. Now, the Prime Minister, speaking at an event, spoke about how people in India speak and know more about Mbappe than people in France. I don't know if that's entirely true, but it does set the stone in the right direction, because Mbappe is that global leader. He's a footballing legend already at such a young age. He's won the World Cup. He's won so many titles. I mean, he's a proper football fanatics here in India, really adore and love Mbappe. And the Prime Minister invoking Mbappe. I remember back in the United States, the Prime Minister said that, today children on Halloween in India become Spider-Man, and people carry out, yoga exercises in the United States. That's the kind of level that, and the layering of the speeches, that's the thought behind these layered speeches. Let's quickly listen in to the Prime Minister, and then we'll move on to other topics.
भारत में आज भी लिखने के लिए अनेक लिपियां हैं, स्क्रिप्ट्स हैं, हमारे लिए ये गर्व की बात है कि भारत अपनी इस महान परंपरा को आज भी जीवंत बनाए हुए है। भारत के स्कूलों में, भारत के अलग अलग कोनों में करीब करीब 100 भाषाएं पढ़ाई जाती हैं और बहुत से लोगों को ये पता नहीं होता कि दुनिया की सबसे पुरानी भाषा तमिल भाषा है। और इससे बड़ा गर्व क्या हो सकता है कि दुनिया की सबसे पुरानी तमिल भाषा भारत की भाषा है, हम भारतीयों की भाषा है। और साथियों, भारतीय भाषाओं की इस डायवर्सिटी का आनंद अब दुनिया भी ले रही है। आज दुनिया का 46% रियल टाइम डिजिटल ट्रांजैक्शन भारत में होता है। और मैं आपको भी चुनौती देता हूं कि अगली बार आप भारत में आए तो जेब में एक भी पैसा लिए बिना निकलिए घर से। खाली जेब, सिर्फ मोबाइल फोन पर यूपीआई ऐप को डाउनलोड करके रख लीजिए। आप पूरा हिंदुस्तान घूम करके आएंगे, एक नए पैसे कैश की जरूरत के बिना आप अपना गुजारा कर सकते हैं। तब तय हुआ था कि फ्रांस में पढ़ने वाले भारतीय स्टूडेंट्स को 2 साल का पोस्ट स्टडी वर्क वीजा दिया जाएगा। अब ये भी निर्णय लिया गया है कि फ्रांस में मास्टर्स करने वाले भारतीयों को 5 साल का लॉन्ग टर्म पोस्ट स्टडी वीजा दिया जाएगा।
Well, so you've got the acquisition of the 26 naval Rafale jets, the 3 Scorpion subs that have been okayed, the UNSC talk. That's something that we have to look at. Of course, just to quickly take the viewers across what Prime Minister Modi's day looks like today. Inspection of the troops by the General Officer commanding the foot and the motorized parades at the end of the Republican Guard of Honor. That's going to take place at 1:15 Indian time. At 1:30 to 3:50 p.m. it's the Bastille Day, arrival of the President of the Republic, Avenue Day, Friedland, honors paid to the President of the Republic by the Republican Guards 1st and 2nd Infantry Regiments. Then at 4:30 p.m. Indian time, there's a lunch that is going to be hosted by President of the National Assembly. At 6:10 p.m. you've got the meeting with prominent personalities. 8:30 p.m. is the ceremonial reception. 10:30 p.m. is the CEO forum meeting where probably all the big tech and the big giants, the big firms, they're going to be speaking to the Prime Minister. At 12 a.m. Indian time is the banquet dinner in Louvre, and at 3:35 p.m. in the wee hours of the morning, the Prime Minister departs for Abu Dhabi. And these are the naval Rafales that you can see. 26 of these that have been okayed by the Ministry of Defense. The Navy has zeroed in on these naval Rafale, but the jet deal is likely to be announced during Prime Minister's France visit. 24 to 30 fighters. It's a multi-billion-dollar deal, ladies and gentlemen, right after that jet engine technology signing that we did in the United States. All right then, ladies and gentlemen, let's quickly shift our focus again here. I'm reading here on the front page of the Times of India, and I'm sure other papers must have picked it up as well. This about Manipur. The European Union Parliament had put out this prospect that let's debate Manipur. Now They did so. India had already, flagged off concerns. There was proper lobbying that was going around in Europe. Do not take this issue up because this is our own internal matter. That's the stand that the Minister of External Affairs also took, and that's a similar stand that several diplomats outside on foreign soil representing the country took as well. But then again, the European Union Parliament did go on with that debate, and a lot of people said that what the Parliament said and the arguments that were presented in the European Union diluted the situation of Manipur. See, what's happening in Manipur, it's not easy to understand. I wish it were. But right now you have multi-dimensional socio-economic fault lines at play. You've got violence that continues unabated. You've got sophisticated weaponry with the people. You've got these two communities fighting for scheduled tribe status, one asking for the scheduled tribe status, the other one opposing the other's demand. On the other hand, you've got narco-terrorism, you've got a porous border with the Golden Triangle, which is Laos, Cambodia and Myanmar. It's not as simple as a Hindu versus Christianity debate, is it, Varghese? But I think the European Parliament has sort of diluted it to that level, and the government of India has categorically come out and said, ladies and gentlemen, that the interference is not acceptable.
Well, I'll just take a quote that the Hindu has given, especially from the member of European Parliament, Sven Simon. What he says is that we call on the most populous democracy to do what is duty bound to do in its constitution to retain religious freedom also for Christians in Manipur. So European Parliament asks India to act promptly to end Manipur violence. MA spokesman Arvind Bakshi calls the move unacceptable and reflective of colonial mindset. The resolution seeks protection to Christian community. MEPs also criticized the Modi government's policies since 2014 and has asked the centre to accept democratic functioning. Now, the resolution of members of the European Parliament, MEPs, called on the EU to make human rights prominent in its dialogue and relationship with India, a point that was repeatedly raised during the pre-vote debate. The process brought together an unlikely mix of left and right parties, which also approved two other resolutions in rights in Venezuela and Kyrgyzstan. However, the Ministry of External Affairs MEA spokesperson Arvind Bakshi called the European move unacceptable and reflective of a colonial mindset. This is what exactly I was trying. See, this is our internal matter. We have our own processes going on. We don't need to be pontificated about like what to do with our situation. It is a very complex situation. I think people over there can't simplistically divide it into a Christian community and versus the Hindu community kind of an issue. It is complex. It's layered. It has issues about identities.
India says that decisions and arguments reflect a colonial mindset. This is what they're saying.
Yesterday I was saying the same thing. Like
the EU motion says all stakeholders in Manipur should exercise restraint. This is the EU motion.
But the fact remains, is Kabir, is that this is a colonial mindset. How many in the EU actually understand what's happening on the ground in Manipur? There is a geographical issue to it. There is an issue about immigration. There is an issue about rights of the tribals. There is an issue about a community which is in the hills feeling persecuted. There's so many layers to it. And there is also the issue about the community in the valley finding themselves shortchanged in government services. So these are the issues that are there. So they can't just simply make it into one versus the other and tell us that ensure law and order is in place. We are trying to do it in our own front. That's why I said if we start digging out Europe's sins, then I think we should start with the immigrant crisis. Then the immigrations from North Africa, the way the children have died, the way they are treated once they reach the borders of Europe, how they are made to stay in shanty built infrastructure where the immigrants are treated really badly. And if that is the case, I don't think so. None of them have the rights to pontificate. If you're talking about human rights, let's talk about Europe's human rights. Where does it stand? It's great to in fact pontificate from there. You're talking about if we start from from the 1950s onwards, there are several points in which Europe has failed in its human rights record. The way it is treating immigrants, the way it is treating its black population. So if we start on with it, I think we can have enough of files to put it. But India is not a country that goes out and tries to interfere in others' internal problems. every nation has its own internal problems. We can ask about what is happening in Catalonia and with regards to Spain. We can ask what is happening with the riots in France. We can ask about what is happening in Germany, where the huge immigration issues are there, and racism in
gun
Europe
violence
is very
in the
simple.
United States.
Gun violence in the United States. I mean, if the West wants to pontificate, we can just point out the fingers at each other and talk about how human rights abuses are taking place. We can talk about why did you go to war in
This
Iraq.
essentially was a lazy attempt.
This is a hungover colonial mindset that is there, and I agree with our foreign spokesperson when he says that it is not that our systems are not looking into it. Our systems are looking from multiple. We have the executive involved, we have the paramilitary forces and the military forces involved in this. We have our courts involved in this. We have the two stakeholders, the primary two stakeholders, the Métis and the Cookies also involved in it. They are also looking at all the institutions for finding out justice. Now, this is an internal matter of our country, and I don't think so they have any rights to, give
The
that
European
sanctimonious,
Parliament would be well advised to utilize its time more productively on its own internal issues. This is what
exactly
MA
what I was
said,
saying
and it's
yesterday.
straightforward, isn't it?
It is very straightforward. I mean, I think they have their own internal issues. Do you understand that Eastern Europeans don't get the same kind of leverage when they move to Western Europe? This is in spite of some of the Eastern European countries have been part of, the European Union. So I think they have their own problems to look into. They have their own problems, and they should debate about what is happening within their own boundaries rather than trying to pontificate to us.
All right. At the same time, we've got a little blurb on the side. It says the Methi Lipun chief faces FIR for inciting hatred. Manipur police have registered an FIR against Pramod Singh, the chief of socio-cultural organization, the Methi Lipun, charging him with several offences, including criminal conspiracy and inciting hatred between groups. The case was based on a complaint filed by two leaders of the Kuki organization. So again, violence continues in Manipur. Of course, things are certainly far away from peace, but that does not mean that the European Union is going to call out a proper debate on this, even when the Ministry of External Affairs and the Foreign Ministry of India categorically asked them not to do so, because this is our own internal matter. And it certainly shows the colonial mindset with which those arguments were put forth. They've got their own problems. Everybody's got their own problems. Doesn't mean we start calling each other out on the international stage at a time when the Prime Minister is in France, being conferred with the highest civilian honor that.
So the timing, I think we should suspect the timing. I think
timing is certainly timing is definitely suspect.
Especially when he's in France, and there is a lot of negotiation going with the government of France. I mean, the timing is really suspect as to why would you bring out a resolution right now. You just made the timing perfect, isn't it?
All
so
right.
what is the actual intention behind it?
In the neighboring state of Mizoram, shifting our focus just a little bit, albeit we're still in the northeastern region. In the northeast India, you have Mizoram, and a BJP Neta, a BJP politician, he cites attack on churches in Manipur and has quit. Now, this BJP Neta is nobody but Mizoram's unit's vice president, R. Van Ramachonga, who resigned on Thursday in protest against what he called apathy of the party-led governments at the center and in Manipur to the alleged attacks on Christians and churches in the neighboring state. This is reported by H.C. Vanla Ruata. I'm reading a copy from the Times of India. It says, due to the recent outbreak, quoting somebody, due to the recent outbreak of ethnic conflict in Manipur, at least 357 Christian churches, pastor quarters and office buildings were burnt to ashes by Methi militants. Van Ramachonga, the former vice president, he wrote in his resignation letter to the state's party chief, and he accused the centre and Chief Minister N. Biren Singh's government of endorsing attacks on religious minorities.
Well, it makes clear sense when he puts down his papers on this, because one, Mizos have a close ethnic affinity with the Cookies in Manipur. One is that, and then you've seen most of them, in fact, the Cookie community members actually moving towards the areas that we call as safe for them when it comes to Mizoram, and they were in fact taken care of Mizoram. So there's a lot of pressure on Mizoram's politicians, especially those who are in the BJP, as to bring some kind of solution to this or to support them. So here, of course, on two sides. One, you have the ethnic community issue, and then you have a religious issue that has to be put into place. So the vice president of Mizoram's BJP resigning is probably a start of what is going to happen to that party in that state, because they are under a lot of pressure from their own local domestic constituents as well.
Well, certainly. And let's not forget, Mizoram is another state that heads towards polls this very year. And also, UCC is that contentious debate that people have started talking about in Mizoram as well. The Chief Minister, Zoramthanga, he was one of the first chief ministers from other states. Of course, it is the neighboring state, and you'd expect the neighboring chief minister to let out a statement. But then again, the Kuki-Zo community, there are very, a lot of similarities between these two tribal communities, and we'll have to wait and find out how things play out in Mizoram vis-a-vis the tenuous state in Manipur. Now, it is again a big day because across all pages on the front page, we can see that the countdown for the Chandrayaan-3 launch has begun. The launch is going to take place today. The launch takes place in Sri Harikota from launch pad number 2. It's going to use the LVM-3, the launch vehicle Mark 3, which is going to house the Chandrayaan-3 mission module. The mission module is pretty much similar than what Chandrayaan-2 had in 2019. However, there's one major difference. We don't have the lunar orbiter this time around. August 23rd is when they're saying that it will finally attempt that soft landing on the moon. Now, the problem here is, ladies and gentlemen, one Earth day on the moon becomes 15 Earth days, because that's how slow the moon is orbiting the sun, the Earth. On the other hand, they will have to wait and find out whether August 23rd is going to be the right date, because the life of the module, the mission module, is going to be just 14 days. 120 degrees turns into minus 120 degrees when there is no sunlight on the surface of the moon. So there is essentially no solar power or solar heat to keep these machines running. Take a look at these, this particular blurb on the newspaper. Ask the camera person to quickly focus on this little portion. Now, this little portion over here, it showcases what the mission is all about. You're going to have a rover. You will also have right here towards this side, you have the rover, and you have the lander. Now, the lander is called Vikram, named after Vikram Sarabhai. They say the father of Indian, aeronautics.
Scientific thought.
And you also have
modern
the rover. The rover is called Pragya. Now, the rover, it's interesting to note here, Varghese, that the rover has the ability to pick up data on seismic activity on the moon. It's going to pick up data on the soil that it's walking on. A little ramp is going to protrude from the lander on which the rover is going to climb down. It will have an umbilical cord connected with the lander for better data on where all the rover can go. Only 14 days, nothing groundbreaking that's going to happen here, but India is going to become the 4th country on the planet to finally successfully attempt a soft landing on the moon.
It's also a proof of concept that we are looking at when it comes to this. The proof of concept especially being when it comes to how the moon landing can be done.
These are ISRO scientists in Tirupati. Varghese, sorry to cut you short, because the God's blessings is, very important. You remember how, the ISRO chief started crying, shedding those tears out, and the Prime Minister had to come back in and, hug him, tell him that all's good. After Chandrayaan-2, have we taken the right step in the right direction when it comes to Chandrayaan-3, getting over with the lunar orbiter?
I would wait till August 23rd, because we have to wait till August 23rd. It's a very complex maneuvering.
You mean to say the launch is the part that we have nailed? It's the landing that we have to focus on.
The landing we have to focus, because the launch, we have sent a probe to Mars as well. We have sent successful probes to the moon. So the question is about whether we can attempt that soft launching, because it will give the fact that India has mastered certain degree of rover technology that we have, and it is on an experimental scale as well. But this we have to just wait and watch, because our workhorses, especially our launch vehicles, have been tested for quite well. And for me, I would wait till August 23rd to find out what exactly happened when it comes to the soft landing on the moon. And of course, they are trying to attempt to land it at a location where a lot of exploratory activity has not taken place. And this is, the moon could be the future, the kind of
what does this signify in terms of India's position on the global stage in the race towards space? You've seen those old
two things,
right? India is now finally
low budget,
in the club.
High tech.
Low budget and high tech. So this is essentially our demonstration of our engineering prowess right? We're trying to show the world how we can do it in less amount of money, and
exactly.
still with the right kind of accuracy and quality.
Across the world, people, of course, we can't compare ourselves with the kind of budget that NASA and other European Space Agency and others get. But with whatever we have, ingenuity and creativity is what we rely on. For example, when we went to Mars, we relied a lot on gravity. We actually relied a lot on gravity. It took time to reach Mars, but we relied on gravity, and we did send the probe out there. Here also, we will be relying a lot on gravity as well, and let us see how this is going to in fact be, because one thing is that Kabir, this is a very sophisticated mission. It is a very, very sophisticated mission that we are looking at, and it has several steps that has to be cleared and monitored, and
certainly
it's a complex maneuvering.
10,000 seats, Varghese. 10,000 seats have already been sold. They've gone in 3.5 hours. Everybody is there to see the launch of Chandrayaan-3. It's going to take place today from Launchpad 2 in Sriharikota. Now, it is done to study the moon from its surface, Earth from the orbit. The moon and the lander is going to, the entire module is going to orbit the Earth for about 5 days before it takes that propulsion, that it gets propelled into the orbit of the moon, and it then again going to orbit the moon for another 5 Earth days before it uses that propeller and get into the lunar orbit. Finally, attempt that soft landing.
Well,
it's so interesting to see. I'm quite excited about India finally taking this step.
When we went to Mars, there was this question about saying that it costs much less than the movie Gravity, and it's a lot of ingenuity, what is naturally possible that we are looking at. And it's not that our moon mission is something that is out of the box as such. It is looking at very simple measurements, like, for example, as you right said, if there are seismic activities, probably water on the moon, the presence of helium on the moon. These are some of the basic things that we are carrying out. But the fact is that if we can send the rover, then it's a proof of concept that we have arrived at that complicated maneuvering. And also, our space technology is something that we use for the bettering of lives here back on Earth. But the space technology that we have on offer, if we can have this low budget, high tech space technology, then we can make space accessible to other countries as well who are on low budget or do have a shoestring budget for any of the kind of space programs they want to get in. So you can collaborate with them, and we can also make it much more affordable for the rest of the countries.
Well, so final landing has been planned on the 23rd of August. You can catch a special show on Chandrayaan-3 today only at 11 a.m. On the News 9 live streaming service. The final landing has been planned on 23rd of August, will be tracked by ISRO's Bengaluru station, and successful landing will make India only the 4th nation to soft land on the lunar surface. That's the rocket that you can see, the LVM-3, the PSLV, and the module that has been placed inside the top portion. It has the rover, the Pragyan rover. It has the Vikram lander. In 2019, we lost connection with the Vikram lander just minutes before making that final touchdown. Will it happen this time around? Well, let's hope not. India is ready to take that step, enter that club of high tech space and aeronautics, space science and aeronautics. We'll have to wait and find out. All eyes on this launch for all the details, for what's the difference between Chandrayaan-2, Chandrayaan-3, what can be expected. Do join us at 11 a.m. of course. Varghese, it seems like that's all the time we have for you. Before I move on, I'm going to quickly show you this one little cartoon by Unni. I really love the cartoons that Unni does. It's business as usual. This small little cartoon over here comprises the entire news of the day. I'll request the camera person to showcase that. Business as usual. It says, and the character is sitting on top of the Yamuna in Delhi. It says, aerospace never looked more beckoning. It has Chandrayaan over there. it also has the Rafale over there. Chandrayaan goes up, Rafale on the right. Aerospace never looked more beckoning, even as he's got his all his stuff and he's floating on the Yamuna river. That's the entirety of the news comprised in one little cartoon. We're going to leave you with a reaction coming from the Prime Minister. All the best to the team at ISRO. Let's hope for the best and wish for the best. Let's hope that Chandrayaan-3 is a successful mission. That's all the time we have for you. Many thanks, Varghese, for joining us. We're signing off. Listen into what the Prime Minister had to say.
21वीं सदी की दुनिया टेक्नोलॉजी और टैलेंट के दम पर ही आगे बढ़ेगी। भारत और फ्रांस के बीच साझेदारी का ये बहुत बड़ा आधार है। हमारा स्पेस प्रोग्राम इसका प्रमाण है। थुम्बा में जब साउडिंग रॉकेट स्टेशन के निर्माण की बात आई तो फ्रांस ही था जो मदद के लिए आगे आया। उसके बाद से हम दोनों देशों ने स्पेस सेक्टर में बहुत लंबा सफर तय किया है। आज हम एक दूसरे के सैटेलाइट्स लॉन्च कर रहे हैं और आपको खुशी होगी, अभी जब मैं आपसे बात कर रहा हूं तो भारत में चंद्रयान-3 की चंद्रयान-3 की लॉन्चिंग के लिए रिवर्स काउंटिंग की गूंज सुनाई दे रही है। कुछ ही घंटों बाद भारत के श्रीहरिकोटा से ये ऐतिहासिक लॉन्च होने जा रहा है।
He thought he could outlast us. And 1 year later, the evidence is right here in this room.
Who will blink first?
So far from preventing the expansion of NATO, Russian actions have actually resulted in the expansion of NATO.
It's a mess for Russia and it's a mess for the Western world, for NATO and the United States.
Putin is a dictator, and if he loses, that means the end of his regime, and probably of him personally. So he has to keep going.
Year 2, no end in sight. Streaming now.
मैं इमरान अहमद खान नियाजी सबके दिल से हल्फ उठाता हूँ।
When Imran Khan came initially into politics, he thought his personal popularity would be sufficient for him. It didn't happen.
The retired military generals are openly saying that Imran Khan is a better choice.
Imran Khan may have bitten a bit too much, more than what he can chew.
Implosion. This and more. Streaming on world's first news OTT. News 9 Plus. Download now. China won't let us rest easy on our borders, but they will keep flooding our markets. What does Xi Jinping really want?
I think he wants the Indian market, no doubt about it.
It's really a matter of showing their dominance.
India's great Chinese conundrum.
Nobody can contain it. Not the United States, not China, not anybody else.
Frenemies. Streaming now.
Hello and a very good morning. Thanks for tuning into News 9 Live. I'm Kabir Naqvi. Joining me here in the studio is my colleague Varghese P. Abraham, and we're taking a look at what we've missed in terms of overnight developments. What are some of the top headlines across various newspapers? We've got Hindi, English, national newspapers. Varghese helps us out with some news focused from Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. What are tabloids saying? What's the social media buzz with? We're going to let you know exactly all of that. But more importantly, we're going to ask the viewers to get down in the comment sections. Really help us understand what is it that you would like for us to do, give you a balanced perspective on any story underneath the sun. We have focused and pinpointed a couple of stories that one does have to look at. Of course, you have the Yamuna floods right here on the top page. It says Red River Fort, and it's got a proper, a picture of the Red Fort with a proper puddle, swimming pool-like situation. The NDRF, the STRF, you could see those visuals. We'll show them out to you in just a bit. Of course, the Prime Minister is in France. It's Bastille Day in France. It's their national day, and at the same time, it's important